Thank you. I hope you're not all here just because you can sit next to the toilet. So, 33 years ago, I graduated on artificial intelligence at the psychology faculty at the university here in Amsterdam. And I worked on expert systems. So I was trying to put the knowledge of a human into a computer. And we saw the brains of a human as a black box because we are quite impressed with what was going on there. I had lectures from Professor Weizenbaum. He actually worked at MIT and he built the first chatbot already in the 60s of the previous century. It was a psychotherapist chatbot. Actually, he warned already in the 80s when he did his lectures for the possible dangers of AI because he saw the impact that these chatbots can have on the minds of the human brain. And fellow students at my university were working on deep learning. So they were more working on neural networks. And they did see the brain as something that they could open up and try to simulate it. When I graduated, there was not much work for me to do. It was a bit of bad timing because those AI winters started in '92. But never mind, I started working for ING and I had a lot of fun and still have with automating processes and products in the regular way. But now also more and more with AI. If you see what's going on now at this conference, I think you can say that the guys from the neural networks and the chatbot guys have kind of taken over, and the knowledge guys with expert systems are not so much there in the world of today. Because these LLMs, of course, are also the evolution of massive neural networks actually, that can actually, you can feed them with a lot of content and they can actually predict quite precisely what the next word will be. But this content, so you can put the whole internet into such an LLM, but actually the knowledge, they actually don't have a clue what you're talking about. But the talking that they do is quite impressive, of course, and that's because they're based on language. But it's not only about talking, it's also about action. So you have to talk about it, but if you can turn that into action, that's where the real value will lie. So what I will try to explain in the next 12 minutes is how the real value of AI can come if we can really create models that understand what they're talking about and can put that into action. And I will try to use some examples within ING in the mortgage domain to explain how we deal with this. ING is a bank with 40 million customers, 60,000 employees. We're present in 40 countries. And mortgages is part of consumer lending, so consumer lending and mortgages together is a core product of ING. We are in the retail markets that we are in, we play a significant role in the mortgage business. And this is not only very important for us as ING, but it's also very important for the consumer, because the customer goes through a life-changing event when he wants to buy a house. And of course he needs a trusted party to make sure that this will go the way he wants or she wants it to be. And it has to be reliable and it has to be easy. So how can automation and AI contribute to that service is what I want to go into. Going a bit back in time, 15 years ago, two big brands of the Netherlands, ING, merged, Postbank and ING. We had to migrate millions of customers and millions of their products, including mortgages products. So the challenge was how to do that in the best way. And fully automating this migration would have taken way too much money, and doing it fully manual would have taken way too much time. So we decided to take a middle way with robots. Robotic process automation mimics the human by copying the administrative actions, using the user interface that normally a human would do, and making sure that the software robot just follows a script to make sure that the work is done that is needed. And this is the way how we migrated also all the mortgage products from the legacy system to the target system. And it is really very efficient because you can just leave the process as is, because we just use the process that we normally used for creating a new customer and creating its product. But for the migration it was slow. And we didn't need to change the IT systems and the business logic that sits between the user interface and the database. You get that for free because the robot just follows the same process. And after migration, we did a lot of robotic process automation also in other parts of our processes, also for mortgages. Today, we still have a lot of processes which are enabled by robots, mainly in the simple administration processes. So if you look at mortgages, it's about the repayment of mortgages where robots play a role. It's about release of funds. It's about opening a mortgage account. That's where robots are very good. And I talked about knowledge and action. Well, robots really love action. They can really work 24/7, relentlessly. About the knowledge, I would say they don't have a lot of knowledge. They just have a script. It's rule-based. They just follow orders. There's not much intelligence in there. If you look at more complex processes, that's where the robot is kind of failing, but that's where AI comes into the picture. We've got, for instance, documents that we ask customers to provide when they want to have a mortgage. So, for instance, a salary slip is a way to demonstrate your proof of income. What we use there is deep learning. So we train the models that we have with thousands and thousands of salary slips of different countries and of different salary providers and companies, so that actually the deep learning model can start identifying patterns and can actually extract data out of such a document and give it back in a structured way, so it can be used for the downstream mortgage systems. And this is actually creating a more easy, more accurate process, which helps us, but also the customer, because it's much more user-friendly. We also try to improve that by also adding quality checks at the front of the process, so that whenever you upload the document, we already know beforehand that it's the right document and we can read it well. We are now adding also additional documents next to the salary slip, like energy certificates, identity documents, tax forms, all those documents that you need to go through this quite complex process of getting a mortgage. What we're also adding now is with AI enabled is fraud detection, because we now also need to make sure that the document is authentic, and with AI we can detect such forgery also better than the human eye can. And this is of course also a bit of the darker side of AI, because on the other side, these people who want to forge, they also use AI. So it's kind of a rat race that we're seeing here, but we are using the AI on the other end. Well, deep learning is actually an evolution of these neural networks that I talked about at the university. They are very good in recognizing patterns, but they don't have a clue what they're doing, because they don't know what a salary slip is. They just identify the patterns. With a Gen AI, it's interesting that the more complex documents cannot so well be extracted by deep learning, but with Gen AI, we can do more. So for instance, a very text-heavy document like a sales agreement that you need when you sell a house and buy a house, which is made up by a notary with natural language, we see that the Gen AI can really extract data very well out of such documents. And the good thing is also about the LLMs and Gen AI is that you don't need to train it so much with thousands of samples, because it has already been pre-trained to a big extent. Then the chatbots, of course, they have also evolved since Professor Weizenbaum, and also within ING they are evolving. First we had chatbots where you could maybe only, it would refer you to the website where you could look for more information. Then it evolved more into an assistant that could make an appointment with the human advisor for you. But now also with Gen AI, you see that it's getting more and more natural conversation, and also it can really advise and help the customer with finding the appropriate mortgage and with the specifics that the customer actually is looking for. The thing about the chatbots is, of course, it's only talking, so there's no action there. So that's what's missing there. And I think also the knowledge is missing. It talks, but it doesn't really know what it's talking about. So you might relate to the RPA robots and how they think about the chatbots. It's like a colleague, maybe you know one of your colleagues who's talking a lot, but actually you are doing the heavy lifting. That's exactly how the robots, the RPA robots, think about the chatbots. Maybe also my colleagues here in the room will think about me in that way. Now about the action, that's the good news. Agentic AI is really adding the action on top of the natural language capabilities. And this is interesting because that is then the first time that you can also automate and really do stuff in an intelligent way, because automation has been more the area where the robots and other ways of regular automation have been strong. But with agentic AI you can really combine this and get the action going. Within mortgages we do that, for instance, with providing a mortgage assistant to our intermediaries and to our advisors, so they can really have an assistant or an agent that can help you in your conversation with the customer, and actually do also stuff like preparing the conversation, making a summary of the conversation. And further down the line of a mortgage origination process, you also have to do a lot of things like what I told about the documents, but you have to do a lot of checks, administration. So we are also now starting a project where we can combine this need for an orchestrated way of going through these steps with agents that can actually adapt and be flexible in the way they treat a problem and get things done. Of course, agentic AI is not going to solve everything, because you still need humans, because we are talking about complex processes and we're talking about complex IT systems. We still have challenges with data integrity, with legacy systems, with friction in processes. So we still need humans to actually do a redesign of processes. Of course, AI can help, but you now see these agents. It's great that they can actually also follow what they're doing and also report on it. They see a lot of data flowing, and they can also then summarize that data, combine it with other agents, and give back actually their observations and possible improvements. So this is the field where you might also work with process mining and task mining. I think these agents can really play also a very good role in there, helping us as humans to improve our processes. And what lately we are working at is also a risk agent. We are a very regulated business, of course, with banks, so not only financial risk is very important to manage, but also the non-financial risk. And whenever we launch a new product, we have to go through a lot of risk-related paperwork that we need to do. And the great thing is, I think this will be the most popular agent within the bank. We can now also have agents helping you with that process, and not only advising you and chatting with you, but also really taking care of some of the risk work, like filling in templates, like sending an email to the risk officer, and those kind of things. So that will be the part that I think Agentic can really do stuff on in the field of the action. To summarize, how do we see the human in this whole story? I think the human is still very essential, because we are talking about the customer who's going through a life-changing event of buying a house, and the customer also needs to have the trust that the bank can provide that. And this intermediary and this mortgage advisor at ING can really build a trust relationship. And of course, agentic AI can do the action, but still the knowledge is missing there. And I think as long as AI cannot really combine those fields of expertise that were already there at my university times. So having the neural networks, really understanding what they're doing and talk about it, but not only talk, but also put it into action. I think until that time we still need humans, especially the knowledge part will be essential to add to the current AI technologies. And I think that's good news because, for instance, mortgages is a business critical process for the bank, so we cannot afford to make any mistakes there. So until we are there, the human in the loop is still essential. So I think that's the positive note I want to give you at the end of my presentation. So thanks a lot for listening.